Have I destroyed my chances with my ex? Now, it doesn't matter how badly you want a second chance with your ex, even if you know in your heart that you can make them happy. If you've made certain mistakes, you've definitely blown your chances and now have no choice but to move on. So the question is, have you ruined your chances with your ex, or is there still some hope? In this video, I'll help you figure out if you've ruined your shot for good, and I'll explain what to do next if there is still hope. So let's start off on a positive note. You're not alone. Tons of people tell me on a daily basis that they wish they'd started following my advice sooner. Sometimes people are worried that something they said in the heat of the moment was the final nail in the coffin. Other times, people will watch some of my videos after their breakup, only to realize that everything they've done up to that point is the exact opposite of what I recommended. The point is that this is very, very common. Details of each situation vary a bit, and maybe something you said you regret, maybe you begged or pleaded with your ex incessantly, or sent them angry or cruel messages, or tried revenge even. But whatever it was, there's no sense in beating yourself up over the past. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that you learn from them and move forward. In many cases, in fact in the majority of situations, there's still a pretty good chance you can save things and have a shot at getting your ex back. One of the best ways to figure out your chances is to just take the free 5-minute quiz at xbackquiz.com. Go there after this video or click the link in the description, answer a couple questions, and you'll be sent a detailed score and results report outlining your chances at what to do next. Again, after this video, take the quiz at xbackquiz.com. Now let's talk about another very important factor, and that's time. The first thing you need to understand is that time is a huge factor in this. If it's been a few weeks or less since the breakup, and you only made a few mistakes during that time, then your chances are going to be a lot better than if it's been 9 months and you've made countless mistakes throughout that period of time. It's usually not one mistake, but a series of mistakes that puts you in this position. Now, that's not to say you can't still turn things around if it's been a long time since your initial breakup, but it definitely does make things more difficult. As a general rule, the longer it's been since your breakup and the longer you've been making mistakes or exhibiting unattractive behaviors, the more dire your situation actually is. That being said, time can be very helpful. For instance, if it's been a few weeks or you've gone through a period of no contact since you last did something that pushed your ex away, if you said something hurtful and mean to your ex the day after the breakup and you haven't spoken to them for 2 weeks since then, that 2-week period will help your ex let go of their initial emotions and start to miss you, which will make them more opening to reconnecting with you when that time comes. On the other hand, if you've been begging and pleading with your ex for weeks every day since breaking up, it's going to take a while and another period of no contact before they're likely going to forgive and forget. But it's often less about what you did and more about how it affected your ex. So let's take a second to think about things from your ex's perspective. How does he or she think of you right now? Do they see you as a desperate, lonely, or creepy ex? Do they see you as a friend? Or if things haven't really gone well since the breakup, does your ex maybe hate your guts right now? Now that's unlikely, obviously, but it really helps to try to imagine your ex's perception of you right now. Think about how you'd feel about your ex if the tables were turned. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say your breakup was clean and didn't involve any huge arguments, cheating or heartbreak or anything like that. Maybe it was even a mutual thing, where you both agreed that things just weren't working out and that breaking up and moving on was the right thing to do. Then, a week later, perhaps you sent your ex a love letter spilling your guts and begging him or her to take you back, which, of course, is absolutely not a good idea. That type of mistake probably isn't going to make your ex suddenly start seeing you as a creepy loser who must be avoided at all costs. So in a case like that, there's still a very good chance of getting back on the right track and reversing your breakup. But if you sent them a letter and then flowers and then showed up to their work crying, that's a pattern that will change your ex's perception of you in a very significant way. Or let's say you cheated on your ex with their best friend, or spread lies about your ex through Facebook and swore to never speak to them again. You've probably killed your chances of getting them back. I mean, imagine if you were in their situation. Would you still be interested? Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely see people overcome situations even that bad from time to time. But if you did do something truly awful to your ex, or you've pestered them to the point where they're calling the police on you, odds are slim, and you probably need to come to terms with that and move on. Especially if you take my free quiz and get a very low score. Now, most of you watching this video probably fall somewhere in between. Maybe you've made more mistakes than the first scenario I just described, but you haven't been a complete trash fire or shattered your ex's heart into a million pieces. In that type of situation, obviously the specific details of your breakup and the mistakes you've made will determine your chances of success. But generally speaking, it's safe to say that you probably have a chance of getting back together if you stop making mistakes and start using the techniques and strategies that I share in my other videos. If you really want a second chance with your ex, if you know that they're the one for you and you desperately regret losing them, you absolutely can't afford to make any more mistakes from this point on. With that in mind, you need to look at why you've been making those mistakes. Often, this is just because you didn't know that they were mistakes at all. There's no roadmap for this stuff until you find a source of information you can trust, like maybe this channel. You act on instinct alone, and it can get you into trouble. But even more common with people who repeatedly do things that upset their ex and scare them away is that they have trouble dealing with their emotions around the breakup, and this causes them to act out. Obviously, this is a much bigger issue that will take time and effort to fix, but recognizing that this is what's driving you is the first step. In this case, you really need to ask yourself what your priority is here. Because if your main goal is to get your ex back, then you need to let go of your secondary priority here, which I think is to get revenge on your ex or show them how upset you are about the breakup. These kind of issues can be hashed out once you two have reconnected, but that will never happen if you keep acting this way. One of the most common mistakes people make after a breakup is to beg and plead with their ex. You know, asking for another chance, promising you'll change if your ex will give the relationship another shot, apologizing over and over, that kind of thing. These are obviously not the kind of things that will help your cause. In fact, begging and pleading with your ex is a surefire way to make things worse, as I'm sure you know by now. But they're usually something you can overcome if you play your cards right from this point forward. Sometimes you may have killed your ex's attraction to the point where they've genuinely gotten over you. But in many cases, you can still turn things around, especially if you only begged and pleaded for a brief period of time and didn't continue to pester your ex repeatedly for weeks. What you need now is a fresh start. Now, while you can't completely change your ex's mind about you in this moment, you need to show them that you know that you messed up and that you're going to back away. To make this happen, you need to send a message to your ex to erase the negative image of you that they have in the back of their mind and begin to replace that mental image with something more positive. Is this going to instantly make them interested again? No, absolutely not, but it's better than any alternative because it shows your ex that you've gained a little of self-awareness and they don't need to be worried about you and what you might do next. So writing this is going to be different for different people and different relationships, but basically it's a text or email that acknowledges your past mistakes while subtly showing your ex why that wasn't the real you who was begging and pleading. So here's just a basic one that you can adapt to your specific situation. Hey, I'm sorry for how I've been treating you lately. This whole thing has been really hard on me, but I shouldn't take that out on you. I'm going to give you some space and try to figure out my own stuff. Pretty basic, right? But that's really all it takes to let your ex know what to expect next. It shows self-awareness, regret, and also offers them some space. So depending on what you did, you may have to be more specific with your apology, but try not to overdo it. And write it in a way where they don't feel the pressure to respond to you, or you'll get into a bigger conversation that could potentially create more drama. So try not to end it with a question. But before you send this message, you need to know this. Most people will not need to send this message to their ex. This is intended for really bad situations and won't work at all for a lot of people. even if you did do a little bit of begging and pleading in the early days after the breakup. So don't use this as an excuse to break no contact, because it will actually hurt your chances unless you're in a bad situation like some of the ones that I described above. Now that you hopefully have a better sense of whether you've completely ruined your chances or not, there is one more thing you need to do from this point onwards, regardless of how bad your situation is right now. You need to avoid doing anything else that makes matters worse, obviously. But you also need to stop beating yourself up over the past and not replay all these mistakes over and over again in your head, because ultimately it's pointless. No matter how badly you screwed up with your ex, you can't go back in time and change things. You can only try to shift how your ex feels about you from now on. So focus on the road ahead and how you can turn things around rather than fixating on something dumb you did last week or even last month. So now is the time to take the quiz and calculate your chances by going to xbackquiz.com. I mentioned it earlier already, but along with watching this video, taking this quiz should help you get a much clearer idea of where you stand with your ex and whether or not you've still got a shot at winning them back. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you found this video helpful, and as always, I'll talk to you guys below in the comments. Best of luck, and I'll see you in the next video.